Hello, I'm Sonya.
I'm Rachel.
Today we're going to talk about Jared Leto.
You might know Jared Leto from his band 30 Seconds to Mars or his acting career, but what you might not know is that he has a cult.
We know for sure that Jared Leto has a cult, but that's not even what we're going to talk about today. There's actually a lot more to it, but before we get to that, first we're just going to describe to you why we know for a fact that he has a cult. So the first thing is that he has an island retreat thing that has been going on for 5 years now.
So his island is called Mars Island. It's located in Croatia. People can pay thousands of dollars, just a base level. It goes up from there with what kind of experience you want to have. If it's VIP, it costs more. Everybody wears all white. They listen to him play music. It's kind of a concert thing. He talks. They sort of just hang out around him while he looks like Jesus. And then they joke about it being a cult, because it is a cult.
They have merch that says that, and they've made tweets about it, and part of that is kind of a strategy to just dismiss it, because we know that Jared Leto is a troll. They say, oh yeah, yes, it is a cult, haha, funny joke.
Mars Island is where people go and actually commune around Jared Leto, but his broader fan base is called the Echelon, which also functions as a cult, but is mostly internet-based. The Echelon is sort of formed around his band and, the, messages that he tries to broadcast through his music, which is generally very vague, a little spiritual, uses, a lot of mythology from different cultures, and he's come out and said that he likes to be vague in his writing. That way he can connect to more people.
And he has gotten in trouble before for going too far with his fans. The 30 Seconds to Mars subreddit is pretty dead, but there is a secret one, r/echelon, and I tried to get on it and I was not allowed, even though I wrote out a long message about how much I love 30 Seconds to Mars. There's barely any information online about what they actually do, other than if you just go on the Mars Island website and it talks about all the different activities. So we saw all of this and it was kind of suspicious. There were a couple red flags. First of all, it's pretty strange how that was in the news right now. And when I say in the news, it wasn't even actually in the news. It was just covered by a bunch of random websites, but at the same time. And that's kind of weird because Mars Island happens in August, so it's not happening anytime soon. On one hand, it seems like just a bunch of very, very devoted fans and a narcissistic celebrity who can take advantage of that. But we thought that there was a bit more going on beneath the surface. We have come to the conclusion that he is definitely being propped up by some kind of deep state government entity
to most likely run for office, and we think that it's most likely the presidential office.
So the first kind of big red flag about Jared Leto is that his career kind of doesn't make any sense. The timeline that he provides when he talks about his past is very vague and often contradictory.
In 1971, Bossier City, Louisiana, there was a teenage girl, but somehow she managed to make a better life for herself and her children.
Some celebrities want to be more private, but a lot of it just really doesn't make any sense. Talks a lot about just really struggling at the beginning, but he got his first role very early on, and the media kind of also contributes to it, because if you read anything about Jared Leto, a lot of times they talk about how he made a comeback to acting, but if you look at his IMDb, he's been in a movie literally every single year since he's been working, so it doesn't really make sense that he's always portrayed as this person who's on the outside of the industry when he's clearly been in it for a long time.
So Jared Leto's music career also does not line up. Pretty much him and his brother started a band in about the mid-90s and were signed to a record label before they had even recorded their album. Virgin distributed their first album, which is, pretty huge. Most bands tour for many, many years before they ever get that kind of recognition. Another really weird fact is that his brother was actually invited to join a supergroup that included Mark McGrath from Sugar Ray, but At that time, in 1999, 30 Seconds to Mars hadn't even released their first album. It's also weird that most musicians are in multiple bands before, joining one that becomes as big as 30 Seconds to Mars, but this is their first project for either of them. They both say that they had no prior, professional music experience, and yet here they are just having money funneled into them for years and years before they actually ever started making money back, which, most investors don't invest when they're not getting a return. They had the most expensive music video at one point in the mid-2000s, even though, again, they weren't actually making any money, so it makes absolutely zero sense for them to have been given so much money and being propped up to be famous when there was actually nothing to show for it. Also, it's quite interesting that even as a self-described DIY operation, it's pretty weird that they just have so much money at the beginning that there's just being given to them by who? For what purpose? Their music isn't even good. I mean, that's a subjective opinion, but their music isn't very good.
On their Wikipedia page, now it says that their first album, This Is War, received critical acclaim upon its release, but then if you actually go to the citation, it was mixed or average reviews.
To my brother Shannon, the best big brother in the world, you're a true artist. Thank you so much for sharing this insane and amazing adventure that is 30 Seconds to Mars.
Another thing about Jared Leto is that he was an early investor in Uber, Airbnb, and Slack.
How did you find the tech world? What was your first investment? I mean, how did it work?
Did you see those names, Andrew?
Yeah, I know it's
Airbnb.
No, that's what I'm saying.
How'd that happen?
How did it happen? That's what we're getting at.
I can't give you my secrets, bro. I mean, come on. There's some laws against that.
He's always on the ball when it comes to that kind of stuff. But here are some things that are even more odd, and why we think that the entity that is behind him definitely is related to the government.
Jared Leto comes from an Air Force family. His grandfather, Edmund William Lee Metrojohn, also known as William, was in the military branch of the aerospace complex, while his twin brother, Preston L. Metrojohn, was in the technological wing. Preston was an electrical engineer, and the internet was being developed by Rand in the Air Force. Jared Leto says that he spent time in Colorado, Virginia, Louisiana, Haiti, and even though he doesn't claim to have money and grew up in communes, his mom ended up actually marrying a wealthy man who then moved them to right outside of DC in one of the wealthiest neighborhoods in America, right by Langley. We know that DC, a lot of government people. And as we know from sort of just the patterns of the world, that people tend to, stick in similar circles throughout their lives. So if he was in an area with a lot of government connections, it's safe to say that he probably still knows some of those people to this day.
Jared, we can all see that you have the classic pattern of somebody who's deeply involved with the Air Force and the military. If you go on the 30 Seconds to Mars Wikipedia page, it never says, the fans are called Echelon. This information isn't hard to find, though. If you Google what are the fans called, it says Echelon. However, my theory is that it doesn't say that it's called Echelon on Wikipedia, because if you were to put that there and click on Echelon, the hyperlink, it would take you to Echelon, what it actually is, which is a government program from the Cold War. I could not find anywhere why the 30 Seconds to Mars fans are called that. Apparently, it's all a reference to some space stuff. I mean, it is kind of obvious that Echelon is a government program, but thought that was interesting.
So Jared Leto is actually the owner of a former Air Force station called Lookout Mountain, which is actually in the Laurel Canyon neighborhood of Los Angeles, which was the same neighborhood that was known for the, revolutionary hippie movement, which was also led actually by kids of military families. At one point, the Lookout Mountain was a top-secret movie studio for the government. It has since become a residential property and was bought by Jared Leto in 2015 for $5 million. Honestly, it kind of seems like a commune.
As of 2015, when he bought it, he still had his other house. Not sure if he still has both houses now. Part of his streaming service is he made a series of films about national parks in the US and how they need to be saved. And that whole video series is sponsored by Budweiser. Budweiser, a company that we know is very supportive of the US military. His whole career has been leading up to him running for president.
As we know, having a strong support of, people to campaign for you, just in terms of volunteers, is very important. I mean, obviously, besides having money and mass media appeal, Jared Leto has both, because not only is the media very fond of him, he has very high-powered connections.
Last year we were at the Vanity Fair, a new establishment out in San Francisco, and Ron Conway is a good friend of both of ours. And Ron, before I met Jared, pulled me aside and said, at that event was all the insider tech people from Silicon Valley. Jared is one of them.
He has very good press regarding his philanthropy and such, and he also has an entire cult of followers who would be willing to, say, phone bank, travel around the country preaching his message. It's not like they're not already doing that for his band persona, but as soon as it's made political, he already has that backing. He has the workers to do his labor for him.
People who say that they will die for Jared Leto definitely will go and door-to-door canvass for him.
Yeah, if you're willing to die for Jared Leto, I'm sure you're willing to make some calls to strangers.
They really believe in his message. With coronavirus and everything, we're seeing sort of a shift toward online campaigning. I mean, we don't know what's going to happen after this virus blows over, but if hypothetically things were to stay digital, he has the infrastructure for that. He can make movies, he has a streaming service, he has a YouTube channel, he has such a positive image in the media that he's kind of unstoppable. And we've seen in this campaign that the Democratic establishment is totally fine with just colluding. And Jared has those connections.
Another, I think, big part about what he preaches is positivity, and it's such I would say a blank positivity where anybody can sort of put whatever they want into it, which is just this desire to kind of shed any negative thoughts about oneself or the world, which I think is sort of what we're seeing people want. They just want to be happy rather than actually fix any problems, and to have somebody who's so willing to just be positive and spread the message of positivity without anything underneath, that's a politician.
So Jared Leto has actually been slowly pivoting to politics.
To all the dreamers out there around the world watching this tonight in places like the Ukraine and Venezuela, I want to say we are here.
One thing that really is kind of mind-blowing is his YouTube channel. It's currently active.
I get to pick 10 people from around the world, these thought leaders, people that are, lived incredible lives, and basically talk to them about their vision of the future.
I was very surprised by this because you can't say that Jared Leto is giving a platform to people who don't already have it. And it's not like Jared Leto's background or position in the world really gives him a perspective that's interesting or that anyone really cares about. I do think that this helps him in the long run, because if people are like, oh, Jared Leto, what? He's just an actor / singer. You can say, well, no, he's actually spoken to all of these people. He's very interested in politics.
Yeah, so their latest release is just called America. Obviously, we see a lot of artists making statements. You have, Childish Gambino with This Is America. But, what is the slow movement towards politics really trying to attempt? Because he's not attempting to change anything. It's not like he has particularly revolutionary ideas.
Why would you use your platform and influence and, literally not say anything? Unless you're trying to get in with the liberals and the establishment and sort of get into politics without actually really having anything at stake. I think we can conclude by just discussing a little bit what a Jared Leto presidency would look like. and why it is crucial that we don't let that happen. Let's just back up a bit. We need to stop Jared Leto because he has a cult. Like, that in the first place is bad. We don't know how he's leveraging that power. Cults are just not good, and I hope that everyone involved gets the help they need. When it comes to these kind of psychological operations, the Air Force, they know what they're doing, and they have unlimited resources.
And as we can see just from our current president, like, we've already normalized celebrity presidents. So, while he has no political background yet, he actually still has more political background than our current president.
The one thing that he's really been taking a stand on is environmental stuff. Like, he's really big on restoring the Paris Accords, but, like, any real environmentalist can tell you that that's, like, the bare minimum. That's such a lukewarm position to have. And just this idea of liberalism mixed in with this spiritual positivity, green capitalism, Silicon Valley type of stuff is just horrifying, coupled with the fact that it definitely would also be paired with, like, a cult of personality kind of aspect. It's just very concerning.
If Jared Leto does not somehow run for office within the next 10 years, we can all laugh at this video, but he's in his late 40s, so this is the prime time to go from, musician, touring life, plus now the fact that no one can tour because we're all stuck inside. Like, what a better time to come out of a desert retreat and into a world that needs, a new figurehead of positivity.
That was our video. A lot of our information came from a really helpful blog post that we'll link below, and also just research from the internet in general. Please stop Jared Leto before his cult really hurts someone, or before he runs for president.